Welcome to the Weird and Witchy Sh podcast. I'm Kristy, your basic witch guide, here to make the mystical a little bit more approachable. In today's astrology lesson, we are talking all things Virgo and how that manifests as your sun, moon and rising sign. Virgo is the sixth and best sign of the zodiac, if you ask me, with Virgo season starting on August 23rd and ending on September 22nd. And this sign is represented by the maiden, or sometimes called the virgin. Virgo falls at the end of summer, making it a mutable sign. Mutable signs tend to be adaptable, communicative and open to change. They're quite flexible. Virgo rules over the sixth house in the astrological chart. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to say, but I literally tried to say sixth like 5 times. The sixth house in the astrological chart, which is the house associated with daily routines, work, health, well-being and kind of like your lifestyle in general. It's the house of service, so this is your job as in what you do for work, but it can also be the way that you show up for the people around you and like the day-to-day things that you do for others that would be considered acts of service. And it is also the service to yourself, so your daily rituals, routines and well-being practices. And like I said, this house also has a lot to do with your health. Virgo is an earth sign and its ruling planet is Mercury, which is all about communication, intellect, rationality, reason and adaptability. If you would like to know a little bit more in depth about Mercury, then maybe you would like to check out my Days of the Week Magick episode, and I kind of mini dive into each planet and how that correlates to the days of the week and what kind of spell casting and stuff would be good for each day of the week according to the planet or deity that it's associated with. But Wednesday is the day of Mercury, so I kind of dive into Mercury a little bit deeper. The associated tarot card for Virgo is the Hermit, which is the card of introspection, solitude and inner reflection. Again, I have a whole episode dedicated to the Hermit. Some key words strongly associated with Virgo are intellectual, analytical, perfectionist, empathetic, reliable, practical, anxious, productive, critical, fussy, demanding, and self-righteous. Virgo as your sun sign. So your sun sign is who you are at your core. Says it a million times, like everything in our solar system revolves around the sun. Everything in your chart revolves around your sun sign. It's kind of like your deep identity, your innermost, who you really, really are if you get to the crux of you. So if someone has Virgo as their sun sign, that means that they were born between August 23rd and September 22nd. People with a Virgo sun are not only perfect, intellectual and hilarious, but they're also sexy and humble, in my unbiased opinion. And if you don't agree, then you're nothing but a hater. So Virgo suns are typically highly critical perfectionists. This is something that you will hear time and time again when it comes to Virgo. They are like very analytical of both themselves and others. This is very true, and you will always hear this about Virgo. Other perfectionists, they're very critical, they're very naggy, I mean, you know, I'll leave that open to interpretation. I will neither confirm nor deny. No, they are. Like, it's true. Like, Virgos having, like, that kind of, like, criticism and need to analyse everything is definitely a deep part of this sign. However, what's often misunderstood about Virgo is that this criticism kind of comes from, like, a cruel or nasty place. Don't get me wrong, like, it absolutely can come from, like, this kind of cold place. Like, as we've spoke about in all of these Astrology 101 episodes, all of the signs have positive traits that can be equally very negative traits, such as Leo is super confident, but that can kind of sometimes manifest in narcissism. Cancer is very good at reading people and very good at reading people's emotions, which on the flip side could sometimes manifest as a really good ability to manipulate people. Aries are very fast-paced and childlike, and on the flip side, this means that they can be prone to temper tantrums. Sometimes these kind of darker elements are called like the unhealed version of the sign or the shadow version of the sign. But if you like have these traits, it doesn't mean that you're inherently like unhealed. It just means that you're a human being who experiences a wide range of emotions and character traits. And Virgo's no different. So where the nitpicky need for perfection could come from a controlling nature in a cold way, oftentimes it actually comes from anxiety, worry, or stress. Virgos tend to hold themselves to an extremely high standard, and often fear of slipping from that standard can lead to them being very overly critical and feeling like everything must be perfect. It's very often an anxiety-led, fear-based method of coping, almost like if everything, including themselves, can just be absolutely perfect and like completely controlled within like the confines of what they know is safe and they know is okay and they know is good and they know is perfect, then maybe their anxiety can chill, because then everything will go according to the plan and nothing can ever go wrong ever. But as we know, perfection is something that can literally never be achieved. Like we says, Virgo's also very linked to health. So this kind of like anxious state is like a very Virgo trait. And also having like a very anxious, sore stomach can be like a very Virgo thing. And a lot of times that is due to the nerves. Virgos are also very prone to like digestive issues or just like stomach issues, kind of like in general. And I am like no different. Like my Virgo side is like really fucking strong, and honestly can't remember the last time in my whole life that I've not had a sore tummy that day. You know, sometimes we'd just be having sore tummies every single day, and that's just the life that we got given. Although they can definitely come off on the outside as like cold or unfeeling, Virgo is actually a pretty emotional sign that kind of feels things very deeply and can be very sensitive, like very thin-skinned and easily hurt. And they can also be very empathetic towards other people. It's not uncommon for Virgos to kind of absorb the energy of others and of their surroundings. And they can have like a tendency to hold on to these feelings for a really long time, whether that be their own feelings or the feelings of other people. And even though they can be very emotional, the thing with Virgo is they just might not show it. Virgos have a tendency to hide their emotions so as not to rock the boat, because they can be quite introverted, or because they don't want to be perceived as imperfect. So that's why they can often have this kind of like cold outer exterior that comes across very like hard-faced, even though that might not really be who they are on the inside. Ruled by Mercury, Virgos tend to be very good at communication, and they're probably very quick-witted and funny. I feel like Virgos are often the type of people that when you first meet, you'll be like, oh, I think she's like a bit of a bitch. And then you get to know her and she's actually like the sweetest little angel baby in like the whole world. I mean, as a Virgo sun myself, when I meet other Virgos, my first thought is, I don't know if I like this person. And then when you get to know them, you see that this like what you see on the outside is just like a little protection almost. It's actually something that I used to get quite a lot. People would think I was kind of standoffish, but actually I'm just very, very, very shy, and that would sometimes just come across as kind of unapproachable. I'm kind of better now because I'm not quite as shy as, well, I am. I still have social anxiety, but I definitely cope with it better, and I'm definitely more outgoing in group settings. Whereas when I was younger, I feel like I used to be more quiet and just kind of stand back and wait for somebody to like talk to me. But sometimes that would kind of come across as like I wasn't, like I felt like I was like above participating in whatever was happening, when really that's just not true. Virgo is closely associated with the Greek god Persephone, who I have spoken about a plethora of times here on the podcast and on my YouTube channel. But in case you don't know, she is the maiden figure of sweetness for half the year when she's here on Earth. She's all about fertility, abundance, and life. And then for the other half of the year, she's in the underworld with the dead as their queen. Virgo does always have this duality quality to them, much like Gemini, who is also ruled by Mercury, which is why I kind of feel they're both so deeply misunderstood. It's kind of the what you see on the surface is only part of the story. In short, Virgos are emotionally intellectual, creative, reliable, loyal people with big hearts and resting bitch faces. Some famous Virgo sons are Beyonce, Zendaya, Prince Harry, Blake Lively, Keke Palmer, Niall Horan, Liam Payne, Cameron Diaz, Hugh Grant, Colin Firth and Adam Sandler. Virgo as your moon sign. So your moon sign is your inner world and your emotions. I try and not repeat myself too much in these episodes, but I don't know who's tuning in because they want to just learn more about one specific sign because maybe that's their sign, or I don't know if people are tuning in for every single one of the Astrology 101 episodes. So if there is overlap in what I say, I do apologise. I'm just trying to cater to everyone who may be here. But I will try and keep the sun, moon, rising description of what those things actually are to a minimum, on the assumption that you either already know or that you're listening to my previous episodes where I've went into more depth. If someone's moon sign is Virgo, this means that the moon was in the zodiac sign of Virgo at the time that they were born, and the moon changes sign every 2.5 days. Virgo is an incredibly internal sign. You know, they're the hermit, they're introspective, they're self-reflective. So having this very internal sign as your innermost world typically means that a lot is going on in the inside. Virgo moons probably think a lot, non-stop perhaps, and this constant thinking might be taken up with a lot of worrisome or anxious thoughts. They probably notice and analyse absolutely everything, including their surroundings, what someone said, a slight shift in somebody's tone, a facial expression, a change in the energy of the room. These kind of subtle things that other people probably wouldn't give a second thought to, Virgo probably hasn't stopped thinking about. This can mean that they're super intuitive and they know exactly what's going on with any situation before anyone else does. But because they often worry and they analyse and they doubt everything, sometimes that intuition gets overshadowed. If you're having a million thoughts and feelings at any one time, how do you know what thoughts and feelings are actually the ones that are important that you should be noticing? You just don't. Although Virgo can be feeling, emotional and sensitive, they can have a tendency to intellectualize their emotions. I did also say this for Gemini moon as well. Virgo and Gemini are a lot, in some ways they're very different, but they are a lot more similar than, I guess, on the surface. On the surface they don't seem very similar, but they do have a lot of very similar traits. So Virgo moons might be able to describe their emotions better than they can feel their emotions. Sitting with feelings without thinking of the how, why, when might be very, very difficult for Virgo moons. This is because they want to understand everything. They want to know why they're feeling that way, where the root of that feeling came from, how they can overcome it. They just need to know everything, okay? So that they can be the best person ever at feeling feelings. Or even if they are actually letting themselves sit with their emotions, there is this like incessant, why am I feeling this way? How long will I feel this way for? Is it okay that I feel this way? Like, it's a real struggle for them to just feel their emotions and just let that, and just have that kind of sense of acceptance that that's what they're feeling in that moment. Virgo of all placements, although they love organisation, order and routine, are actually very creative. Again, if we take it back to Persephone, she has this kind of dual role that are so complete opposites of each other. Again, if you don't know, it's Persephone who brings about the seasons. When she's here on Earth, it's spring and summer, and when she's down in Hades, the underworld, it's autumn and winter. So within that, there is a need for creativity, to expand out the comfort zone and to be kind of limitless in her potential. But within that creativity, there is structure and routine that is really needed by Virgo. So in the spring and summer, you can be sure that the flowers will bloom and the sun will shine. And in the autumn and winter, you can be sure that those flowers will die and the world will grow darker. So there is creativity within the routine. What is it Monica in Friends says when she's like, rules help to control the fun? That's like very Virgo. Virgo moons can be great leaders if they remember that they are there to lead and not to dictate. Virgo in all placements really can do with remembering this, and it's kind of like a case of, just because you might feel like it, it doesn't mean that the weight of the whole world is your sole responsibility to bear. So you don't have to like dictate the whole world, just, control yourself. Some famous Virgo moons include Blake Lively, who is also a Virgo sun, Courtney Cox, Monica was just bringing that Virgo energy, okay? Maggie Smith, Michelle Trachtenberg, Madonna, Samuel L. Jackson, Tom Felton, Seth Green and M. Night Shyamalan. Virgo as your rising sign. If someone has a Virgo rising sign, that means that the constellation of Virgo was rising over the eastern horizon at the moment that they were born. And this changes every 2 hours. This is why it's important to have your time of birth if you want your birth chart to be accurate. Your rising sign also determines the structure for the rest of your chart. So your rising sign will always rule the first house, and then in order of the signs, your other house rulers will be determined. This means if Virgo rules your first house, Libra will rule your second house, Scorpio your third house, Sagittarius your fourth house, and so on and so forth. Your rising sign or ascendant also determines your chart ruler. So for Virgo rising, your chart ruler would be Mercury. So all of that intellectual, adaptable, communicative, creative energy probably plays a big role in this person's chart. Your rising sign is thought to show a person's fate or destiny because it marks the point where the physical body met the spiritual body, or your soul entered your body and you became the you who is going to be here on this earth. When your little human sim character was created. And as well as showing your fate or your destiny, it also shows your persona here on earth. So the mask that you show to the world. And I have said in all of these Astrology 101 episodes that I feel like the rising sign is very different for everybody. So just the way that it manifests is really, really different. For some people, it's their persona, like their best version of themselves, what they kind of like aspire to be. For other people, it's like a really strong part of who they are at their core, and they kind of identify more with their rising than they do with their sun sign. Some people identified with their rising sign when they were really, really young, and then as they grew up they didn't identify with their rising sign as much. Some people the total opposite, they never identified with their rising, and then as they got older their rising sign became more prominent in their life. Please leave a comment about how you personally feel about your rising sign and how that's shown up in your life. I would just love to know, just out of like curiosity, and like the best way to learn is like hands-on with like people rather than like, you know, reading like books and listening to podcasts is like great, but like actually seeing stuff like in action in real life and real experiences, I feel like makes things so much clearer. Anyway, rising signs can determine your life path and the career that you might be drawn to. So for Virgo rising, the typical thing that people are going to say here is something like accounting related. Something, I was going to say boring, but that might be rude if you're an accountant. I feel like it's always like these kind of like computer desk jobs, dealing with like numbers, organisation, like that's always what you hear for Virgo rising. And don't get me wrong, that can be like a really valid way for Virgo risings to kind of like grow their career, because like there is that love of organisation. But I do feel like there are so many other options out there. My immediate thought for a Virgo rising would be something like a social media manager or a content strategist. I feel like this really balances out the love of organisation and planning while having that creative flair there as well. I even feel like being something like a wedding planner or an events manager would be like so good for Virgo rising. Also because Virgos tend to like caring for people, hence the 6th house of jobs, service and health. I feel like healthcare would be really good for a Virgo, or even like animal healthcare such as a vet, because as an earth sign they tend to be pretty connected to nature and probably enjoy animals and like nurturing and looking after animals. I feel like anything where they can be really meticulous and detail orientated but still have enough room to be creative and let themselves kind of grow and expand, and possibly even something that allows them to be like the sole person in charge. Not that Virgo rising doesn't work well in a team, because they can. I just think it might be smoother if they are like the one leading, or their word is final. Some astrologers also believe that your rising sign is because it's like your physical mask in the world. It kind of determines what kind of look you're going to have or what type of features you might have. So for Virgo rising, this could be looking very like neat and put together. I feel like I immediately thought like clean girl aesthetic when I think of like what a Virgo rising looks like. That kind of like classic, clean, scraped back like bun, glowy skin, fresh, kind of, yeah, clean girl vibes is what I'm thinking. Virgo risings also tend to appear kind of petite and youthful, but they still have quite defined bone structure. And like I said, more often than not, they will suffer from an uncurable case of resting bitch face. So some famous Virgo risings are Doris Day, Andy Samberg, Steve Carell, Bruce Willis, Renée Zellweger, John Barrowman, Kathy Bates, Kurt Cobain, Charles Dickens, and Kris Jenner, who I feel like is a perfect example of a Virgo rising. I feel like Kris Jenner, I'm pretty sure she's a Scorpio sun, and she does look like a Scorpio, but she has very Virgo rising vibes. And the idea of her being like a momager, like this like fucking mastermind behind like the Kardashians and the Jenners, and like just kind of like pulling all the strings and making like everything like work for her. Like I feel like Kris, if I was to say what a Virgo rising, I just think she's like the perfect example of it. And that is all I have for you today. I hope that you have enjoyed today's Virgo episode. I hope that you've found it useful. If you have, please leave a little comment. I would love to chat to you about all things astrology. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast, please do that now. What the hell are you doing? Come on. And until next time, bye!